So, Deepak, first off, thank you for joining us. The first question I have is, you, of course, are an incredibly mindful individual that recognizes the importance of consciousness. And what would you say is the most difficult part of staying mindful daily?
Distraction. I think if you just stop once in a while and ask yourself a simple question like, am I aware? It makes you mindful right there. Or what am I aware of? Or who is having this experience? And after a while, it's almost natural to be in this space of awareness. I personally, by the way, am not fond of the word mindfulness because it means mental activity in a sense, that using the mind, but a more appropriate term would be awarefulness, which is a kind of a clumsy word. So we'll settle for mindfulness.
I do like that. I've never heard that before, awarefulness. Now,
Because the awareness of a thought is not a thought.
that's true. Yeah.
Okay? The awareness of your body is not your body. The awareness of an emotion is not an emotion. Awareness is just the impersonal ground of being in which all experience happens. And once you're grounded there, that's freedom.
It's true. It's wonderful advice. And so did you always set out to be a spiritual teacher, if that's what you want to call it, or to be on this path? Or what was kind of that tipping point that brought you to this? What made you start to get into this realm? Or as they mentioned in one of the panel discussions yesterday, what was that point of care, that point that made you start to care about doing this type of work for people and to help people realize and kind of, I guess, awaken?
I wish I could identify a point. I'm a doctor by training, and I was just trying to figure out how to evoke healing in my patients. I was curious about the fact that you could have two patients who had the same illness. They saw the same physician, they got the same treatment, and they could have completely different outcomes. So I started to look at, what happens in our emotions that may have biological outcomes. Then I realized that the emotions were linked to relationships. And then I slowly got into understanding how consciousness is the ground in which emotions, body, relationships, ecosystem are all inseparably not only connected but inseparably synchronistic or correlated. So it's a journey, and I don't think I'm at the end of the journey, or there is such a thing.
That's true. And so I guess, why do you feel personally that there's such a strong resistance to non-material science still in the mainstream? Like, why do you feel that resistance still exists? Why is it not just grasped and worked with, or at least accepted or seen more?
It has to do with history, we're still kind of influenced by Newtonian physics, at least, and it works. Send men to the moon and rovers on Mars thanks to the fact that classical material physics works.
Yeah.
And now in the last 100 years, you've had quantum mechanics, but even quantum mechanics, by the most of the people who do quantum mechanics, they are what is called physicalists, which means that they think essentially that the fundamental ground of existence is physical. If you go to Wikipedia, you'll see there are about 15 different interpretations of quantum mechanics. Nobody argues about the math. Okay, the math works. And today's technology, from computers to superconductors to, they have now quantum cryptography and all kinds of things. Our economy today is there because of the technologies that are the outcomes of quantum mechanics. So when something works, I got a jet plane to come here and I can use the internet, then the tendency is to believe that just because this works is giving me access to the truth. But it's a mistake, because you can actually organize experience, which is what we're doing through science. We're organizing experience. We're organizing this experience right now for those people who are watching us at home. We can do all this without knowing how experience occurs. And experience occurs only in consciousness. And consciousness has no dimensionality. So what science has done, though, it's brought us to the door of the sub-empirical. The empirical is like a little fingernail in this vast ocean of the sub-empirical, which means immeasurable. Okay, how do you measure that which you can't observe? Okay, so I think we need, or we can hope for, a new science that doesn't have this subject-object split. Right now, science is based on subject-object split. I'm the observer, this is what I'm observing. That is an artificial split. The activity of the universe is a unified whole. So I, the observer, and that the object that I observe, they're a unified activity of the total universe. But science doesn't say that. Now, because science is based on subject-object split, and we have amazing intelligence in scientists, we have the capacity to make technologies that can heal the planet, that can bring us together, that can even repair the ecosystem, tackle climate change, bring about mind-body practices through technology that will help us bioregulate our bodies. Some of us are doing that, but then also some of us are making atomic bombs, are using all the energy systems that are causing climate change. We're causing the extinction of species. So if there's going to be a massive extinction soon, it could be, it's because of science, okay? And not because science, there's anything inherently wrong, but it's based on a false premise that I and the universe are separate entities when we are actually one unified activity. And that unified activity is not a material activity. It's an activity, we say in consciousness, but then people say, what is consciousness? Consciousness is that which makes experience possible. Consciousness cannot be imagined. Consciousness cannot be measured. Consciousness cannot even be conceptualized. Consciousness cannot be seen. How do you see, imagine, conceptualize, or even think about something that is totally dimensionless? Okay? And yet without that dimensionless being, which we all are, there would be no experience. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Wow. That's a great way of putting it all. I want to get into a couple of, deeper questions. If you don't feel comfortable answering them, you don't have to. But are you familiar with the work of Nassim Haramein at all?
I am familiar superficially.
Okay.
So it would be difficult for me to actually answer specifically in details about what he does.
Okay, well, this is a very generic question. Through his extension work, he works with quantum gravity, and he recently stated that we, as a people within science, within consciousness, need to start thinking galactically. Do you have any thoughts on the idea of thinking galactically? Do you think that's accurate from your perspective?
Yeah, I think we can even think intergalactically and mega-galactically and meta-galactically. Why just restrict ourselves to this galaxy? I mean, even this galaxy is a speck of dust in an infinite void, and we should go beyond that, sure.
Absolutely. And then one other thing. Do you believe that there is ET life out there? And if yes, do you believe that they are currently visiting the planet at this time?
I would say statistically it's likely that there are biospheres both in the Milky Way galaxy and in other galaxies that can sustain the kind of life that we have or other forms of life. There's no reason to think that the human species is the only form of life. Even on our planet, we have infinite forms of species. Because of my worldview that consciousness is fundamental, I feel that species, what we call species, biological species, are actually species of consciousness. And therefore, I think the universe is probably full of species of consciousness. Have we made contact with them? It depends on who you ask. Have I personally made contact with them? Not at the moment. But another way to think about that is that if you think that the universe is out there, then that's what will prevent you from making contact with them. If you understand that the universe is in you, by you I don't mean your body-mind, but the awareness in which the body-mind simultaneously arises and subsides with the rest of the universe, then by shifting your consciousness, you can make contact with them because they exist in consciousness. They're frequency domains of consciousness. That I'm experimenting with.
Sounds fun. Yeah, everything starts within. That's a wonderful way of putting it. And I guess just to kind of end this, one last question, more related to this specific conference, which you're familiar with. What do you see as the importance of conferences such as this happening, where they're trying to merge together the worlds of science with the worlds of non-duality with consciousness? How do you feel what do you feel is the importance of things like this occurring, and what people can take from this, both as attendees and also people who see this either through videos or even just what it does to the collective consciousness by things like this existing?
I think once you expand the conversation, which is happening at this conference, and with technology, of course, you expand it outside the domains of this little resort in California, then just expanding the conversation leads to new insights and revelations. Science and non-duality is, in a way, an interesting juxtaposition of two words, because science, by definition, is dualistic. And so when we say science and non-duality, hopefully we are evolving into a science that includes the subject of experience as much as it includes the object of experience. So this I'm saying for those of you or those who are listening or watching who think that science and non-duality at the moment don't mix. Mm-hmm. Science is dualistic by definition. Okay? Yeah. But once we realize that mind and matter, that observer and observed, that the biological organism and the universe, genes and epigenes, they're not separate things. They're one unified wholeness of dimensionless reality. Then hopefully we'll give birth to a new science where we can say science is non-dual. It's not at the moment.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you sitting down with us, and happy belated birthday as well. And hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. So.
Birthdays are only applicable to the body-mind, which is in time, not to the spirit, which is not in time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deepak. Really appreciate it.
Can we get some pictures?